At DSW, we ask the important questions, like, what shoes are you going to wear? Whether you're prepping for wedding season, festival season, or just planning the ultimate vacay, the right shoes can make or break an RSVP. So own the moment. You've got big plans, and we've got just the shoes. At the perfect price, of course. Get ready to get ready with Designer Shoe Warehouse. Head to your DSW store or dsw.com today and let us surprise you.
It's complicated. What fresh hell?
Laughing in the face of motherhood. I got some good mixtapes back in the day. With Margaret Abels
and Amy Wilson.
So you want to start some drama?
A podcast that solves today's parenting dilemmas
so you don't have to. Just parachuting in to be like, this guy is trash and I know it and you don't. It's not going well.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to What Fresh Hell, Laughing in the Face of Motherhood. This is Amy.
And this is Margaret. And this week we are talking about dating. All things dating for our kids, basically. Amy and I are both married. We're not dating currently. We're supposed to be dating our husbands.
Yeah.
No notes about how that's going. But I will say right from the start, if you're starting to listen and you're like, wait a minute, I have a 3-year-old. I don't need to listen to a topic about dating. Spoiler alert, you do. I think a lot of the work that we're going to be talking about and a lot of how we talk to kids about dating is really how we talk to 3-year-olds in play about consent and self-esteem and how you stick up for yourself and when you are kind to someone and when you need to set a boundary with someone. And this is the work of life. And it will play out in your teenager's dating life, but it does not start when your teenagers start dating.
That's such a good point. There's been a lot of talk about this recently in our Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/whatfreshhellcast. A lot of questions about, should 7th graders be having co-ed get-togethers? You know, what are the rules? Can I let this kid be alone with this kid? And so I'm anxious to hear what the thoughts are out there on this.
As I started thinking about this as a mom of teenagers, it really struck me that these are conversations that we start way too late or we skip altogether. Mm-hmm. And so I think I want to start with the idea that, like many things, we often think that we know what our values are. And we think that our children have picked up those values by osmosis or by our in our house we signs that we have in the kitchen. You know, in our house we laugh, we love, we celebrate, whatever. That we forget.
Home goods parenting,
which I'm all for. But that this comes up for me kind of out of the blue. Like, oh, wait a minute. I have a 10-year-old who's suddenly hanging out with a boy or girl who I don't know that much about and what is going on. And that these conversations are super hard and awkward. And often it feels like, wait a minute, I'm not going to talk to my 10-year-old about dating because they're not going on dates. But I think step one in this realm is sitting down and having a conversation with your spouse or yourself and really thinking about what are your values around dating. And it's a question that I realize I don't even really know the answer to, but your values around dating can range from, I am a, super religious person who does not believe that there should be any hand-holding or physical interaction at all before marriage, to I completely want my children to feel absolutely free in the dating world and explore their sexuality. And I have no reservations about what that is. But wherever you fall on that spectrum, this is a conversation that I think we skip with our children.
Yes. And I would say also, and then you revisit those ideas often because 16 years old feels different when they're 12 than it does now that they are 16. You might feel like, okay, I need to loosen up a little bit, or you might feel like, whoa, I thought 16 was way older than this kid feels to me right now. And the other thing I'd say is like dating my own kids. I'm not going to talk too much about my own kids, but my kids and their friends talk about talking so-and-so is talking to this kid, so-and-so is hanging out with this kid. Like the word dating has left their lexicon. And so sometimes I think if we sat down with our kids and said, we're going to talk about dating, they'd be like, oh no, we're not dating. We're just talking / hanging out. And you talk past each other sometimes.
Right. And what do those words mean? I'm realizing it for myself that, back in our day, someone would have to call the house and say, This is Bobby. Can I speak to Margaret?
Yeah.
And then the conversation would be, who's Bobby? What's your relationship like? What's going on? I was not a kid who dated at all in high school, so my parents didn't really have to worry about this. I was a really goofy nerd who no one wanted to date. So I made my parents' lives easier because this did not come up until college when I was navigating it much more on my own. But I still think a lot of groundwork was laid about what the expectations were. And in preparing for this episode, I kind of had a moment of, okay, I haven't done any of this work and I'm a little bit behind. And I think that as it comes up, when you have a child who is 12, 14, 16, and is saying, I'm going out to a party tonight. What does that party look like? Who are you going with? Who is going to be home? What is the level of supervision that is happening? You are going, I've just learned, with 2 friends who both have girlfriends. And there's going to be a third girl there. That is your date for the evening. And then these conversations are super hard. But what is your expectation about what that looks like? And if that looks like sitting with your arm around a girl at this party, what happens next? And how you have to really put a fine point on it. Our rule in our house is that dating is not allowed at all until the age of 16. That you can have friends and friendships. And I have put into words, this means that you are too young in my house by my rules to be in any kind of romantic physical contact with a romantic partner before the age of 16.
I like that you use romantic partner because that's another blind spot that I've also seen brought up in the Facebook group. The idea of you can't let a boy and a girl be alone in a room together. Well, that's presuming that the boys only like the girls and vice versa, that same-sex dating is much more accepted than it was a generation ago, which is great, but you shouldn't assume that you're only talking to your kids or only putting guardrails around acceptable behaviors with the opposite sex.
And I also want to underline that the reaction to this rule from my kids has not been, what a great idea, Mom. That sounds really responsible. I am so glad that you have set that parameter. Young, because you're right. I am too young to be, especially when they have friends who are 12, 13, 14, who have boyfriends and girlfriends. I have, at the dinner table, much to the chagrin of my offspring, said, you told me that John and Sally are dating. They're 8th graders. What does that look like? What does it mean to be dating to you in 8th grade? Or they're a couple. I agree with you that the word dating is not really. But if John and Sally are together, these 2 friends of yours, what does that look like? And I was shocked to find myself having these conversations with 13 and 14-year-olds. I really thought this is a bridge we're going to cross later. And as I have found myself now driving teens around in my minivan, as opposed to driving little kids around in my minivan, I am aware that sometimes teens choose the very back row of my minivan. And I have found myself actively making conversation with them the whole time and making eye contact with them in the little, reverse mirror that is in a minivan to say, I got my eye on you two in the back seat, because not only do I not want my kids engaging in physical romantic contact as youngsters, I don't want their friends engaging in physical romantic contact that I have no idea what their parents' take on is in the back of my minivan.
Some of my kids would have said they had a boyfriend or girlfriend before high school and some didn't. I think there's a wide variety of preparedness and also what that even means.
Right.
And I think I might have been more on the side of like, oh, whatever. They're seventh graders, whatever that means. But even so, fifth and sixth graders can get into fights. Let's just say one of my kids at a much younger age had to go to the head of the school with the person that they were boyfriend and girlfriend with and then weren't boyfriend and girlfriend anymore. So they could have a conversation about how this is why sixth grade is kind of too young to have a boyfriend and a girlfriend. Do you see? And you guys have to be nice to each other now for the rest of the year in the cafeteria. And I kind of was like, oh, it's cute. It's puppy love, whatever. And it was fine, but it did lead to conflict and stuff that wasn't nothing. Because they took it seriously.
I think that is super interesting and what it means. And I'm not great at this, but trying to have these conversations. And I think you have to put a really fine point on it for kids and say, and believe me, these conversations stunk. I hate them. But to say, it is unacceptable for me, for you to have any kind of romance before the age of 16. Here's my reasoning. Mm-hmm. It causes a lot of drama. It causes isolation from your friends. It steals focus at a very important time of your life from schoolwork and other things.
These are all good points.
It causes drama that I don't think you're ready for. Is there a flip side where I worry that if I say 16, that we end up with a sneaking around situation at 14? I am worried about that. But I think that stating my expectations very clearly is the most important first step. And I find it really difficult and I don't want to have the conversations. And I still think of myself as a cool youngster and I don't love the role of like prudish, goofy mom. But I think sometimes this is easier for people who are on a strong side of the spectrum. That to say, the expectation of our religious community or the whole group where we live in is that there is no physical contact before marriage. Like, I'm a little jealous of those people. I'm like, at least I don't think it works out well often, but I'm like, it must be nice to know exactly what your rules are and be able to state them out loud.
It must be nice to live in the town in Ireland where they said no kids can have phones until they're 16 and they all live in a wonderland. Like, as you're saying, it must be nice when you have a group of people that all have the same expectations around this that, yeah, it would be easier in some ways. I hope it doesn't lead to sermonizing against girls and what length skirts they can wear, but but leaving that aside, being with people who kind of agree in a general sense about what should be happening is great.
But let's not leave that aside for a minute, because one of the things that I found really interesting as I was researching this episode is how many of the articles were, as a dad, here's what I tell my daughters about dating. And I was like, guys, we're not doing it. It's 2026. But the idea that has come through the generations that it is the boy's role to pursue sex or physical romantic expression, and it is the girl's role to not allow that, is fraught. It's bad. It doesn't get good results, but it is amazing to me how pervasive. Years ago, there was a show called 10 Rules for Dating My Teenage Daughter that was an offshoot of a book called 10 Rules for Dating My Teenage Daughter. And it's very predicated on the idea of like, dad's got a shotgun, so boys better behave because it is the dad's role to protect his daughter's innocence against boys who cannot be expected to control themselves.
It's so in the groundwater. It blew my mind when somebody said to me years ago, we were talking about middle schoolers and dating and first base, second base. And she said, we were camp counselors. And she said, I just want you to stop and wonder for a second, who's the bases in this? And it's like, right. When we say get to first base, get to second base, the girl's body is the bases.
Is the base, right.
And who's the runner? That whole thing is predicated on the goal is the parts of the girl's body. And it's up to the girl to like, yeah, be super holy and or a dad's shotgun is what's going to keep it from happening.
Right. And I think that that idea really serves girls poorly, but I'm going to argue as well that it serves boys quite poorly as well. So we're going to come back and I'm going to lay some statistics on you, Amy, about teens and dating. I know you love a statistic.
I love stats. Quince has totally become my go-to. It's that in-between weather right now in New York City. And I just got Quince's shorter length trench coat, cotton, a little bit of stretch, makes me look super polished when I throw it on. I just find that Quince's pieces are the ones in my closet that I wear over and over.
Quince makes it easy to refresh your everyday wardrobe this spring with clothes that feel as good as they look. They use premium materials like 100% European linen, organic cotton, and ultra-soft denim.
And you can't beat the prices. Everything at Quince is priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands. Their lightweight linen pants, dresses, and tops start at $30 and are top quality, breathable, and fashion forward.
Quince works directly with ethical factories and cuts out the middleman. So you're paying for quality and craftsmanship, not brand markup. Refresh your everyday with luxury you'll actually use. Head to quince.com/fresh for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns.
Now available in Canada too. That's QUINCE.com/fresh for free shipping and 365-day returns.
Quince.com/fresh.
Well, I'm coming in hot to say it is worth taking care of your skin. It's worth finding the right products to keep your skin smooth and hydrated. Let me tell you, I have tried many products, and time after time, I come back to Osea.
Amy, same. Osea just sent us their anti-aging body balm to try. It combines the lasting hydration of a lotion with the firming power of a serum, leaving my skin smoother, firmer, and beautifully supple.
Osea's body balm is clinically tested and designed to deliver visible results you can see and feel. Since using this product, I really have noticed firmer and smoother skin, backs of my hands, knees, elbows. It really helps.
Get a spring-worthy glow with clean, clinically tested skincare from Osea. And right now, we have a special discount just for our listeners.
Get 10% off your first order site-wide with code FRESH at OseaMalibu.com.
That's 10% off your first order site-wide with code FRESH at OSEAMalibu.com.
Insurance isn't one size fits all. That's why customers have enjoyed Progressive's Name Your Price tool for years now. With the Name Your Price tool, you tell them what you want to pay, and they'll show you options that fit your budget. So whether you're picking out your first policy or just looking for something that works better for you and your family, they make it easy to see your options. Visit Progressive.com. Find a rate that works for you with the Name Your Price tool. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
Okay, so Pew Research did a series of focus groups with teens about teens and their dating habits. And some of this seemed really right to me, and some of this seemed crazy to me. But this is being talked about all over, and I think is recognized that teens are dating less than they used to. They're having sex later. They're engaging in romance later and later, which I'm all for. I am like, the later, the better in this stuff, because I think that undeveloped minds in sexual situations is not a great combination.
Yeah.
Both for girls and for boys. So their statistics said that 35% of teens have some type of experience in a romantic relationship. That includes current and former. That number, it seems shockingly low, right?
Low to me, particularly when you think it includes 13-year-olds and 18-year-olds.
And 19-year-olds, I would assume.
Right.
I fall firmly into the category of the 76% who are saying they never dated someone they first met online. 1 of 4, 24% have dated or hooked up with someone they initially encountered online. Now, this is all new for us, guys.
This is all new for us, although I will say that, I know plenty of people who have met their adults who have met their partners online, like on a dating app. But kids can also meet online. Like, we follow each other on Instagram, and we have never really met, but we have 40 friends in common on Instagram. And I know what school you go to, and I know your friend. And then they start dating.
This is a lot of the relationships that I know about right now.
Absolutely.
I also think as we talk to littler kids and moms of littler kids, I was always like, don't talk to weirdos from the internet.
Right.
But I have kids who now have extremely close friendships with people they met while gaming. And I don't know that much about them. And it definitely freaks me out. But we are in this water now, I think, also. Like the idea that we're going to go back to a day where like Johnny from the 9th grade calls your daughter from the 8th grade and says, hey, do you want to go out on a date? That's not how it's happening anymore.
Not on the phone, not the word date. Right. All of it. Yeah.
Social media and in-person flirting are the top methods for teens to get together. Flirting or talking to them in person was 55%. Friending them on Facebook or other social media, 50%. So this is not out of 100. This is like lots of different people answering, have you ever done these things? Which is why the numbers don't add up to 100. Liking, commenting, or otherwise interacting with them on social media, 47%. Sharing something funny or interesting online, 46%. So this is someone maybe they know from school, but their first outreach to them is like, here's a meme that I thought you would enjoy.
It seems like you're like slightly more likely to flirt with somebody in person if you like them. But basically 1 in 2 people have done all these things.
Yes. Sending flirtatious messages, 31%. Making a music playlist for them, 11%. This used to be the mixtape back in our day.
This is the best way to let somebody know you like them. A mixtape, it was hours of labor.
I got some good mixtapes back in the day.
Then you had to write all the names of the songs like in your best pen that didn't smudge. And then you might use like some like Sharpie, some highlighters or something to decorate it. Draw some flowers.
Like, the woman in red. Oh, you wore that red sweater one day.
Right.
Sending them sexy or flirty pictures or videos of themselves. Now we're getting into a more dangerous zone. Or making a video for them, which I assume is not sexy or flirtatious.
Only 10% are saying that they flirt with somebody that way. I hope it's only 10%.
Yeah.
I'm glad it's only 10%.
And here is another conversation that starts very early. Establishing rules for online starts when your kid gets their first gaming system at 5. You know, I've blocked the chat. You're not allowed on the chat. Or you can be on the chat and you have to disclose your correct age. Or, and these were things, again, that kept kind of flying in from left field for me. And I was like, I don't know what to tell them about this stuff. Do your research when they're younger and start establishing good internet hygiene, like how you are pursuing anything that happens online. Text messaging dominates conversations between teens, romantically and otherwise. Again, we're missing the point where I answer the phone and it's like, Tommy, you better say, hi, Mrs. Abels. How are you doing? Can I talk to Barbara?
I remember running for the phone so that, because if the phone rang around 9 o'clock, it was definitely for me. And I ran so that my very nice boyfriend, Jeff, might not have to speak to my mother or father, who would have been perfectly nice and who probably were like, oh, the phone's ringing. It's for Amy. I'm going to keep watching St. Elsewhere. Like they weren't jumping up to get the phone either, but like, because it was, you had to talk to somebody's parents. It was very scary.
But the flip side is they knew Jeff's name and they had met Jeff.
Sure.
This is a whole new world that is very complicated, right? That you have a child who went to karate class as a 13-year-old and met someone who they're interested in. And they're now having a text relationship with, Bob from karate, who you don't know, and you don't know is having a relationship with your child.
And I would say not even text messaging. Like my teenagers tend to, yes, do they text with their friends? Yes, but they are more likely to be internet messaging or Snapchatting. It's not even visible on their lock screen. So like one of my kids could be, my kids are old enough that this is fine. What they're doing is none of my business at this point because they're old enough. But they could be having a conversation with somebody who's romantically interested in them or likewise. And even if their phone is docked in the kitchen, you're not even seeing it because it's existing nested within a social media app.
Yeah. And this is where, again, have you had these conversations? I'm talking to myself. Does your 19-year-old know that they cannot have a flirty conversation with a 15-year-old? Seems very obvious as an adult, right? Like we understand this, but maybe that's a senior and a freshman. And they don't, especially I think freshman girls look a lot older than senior boys sometimes. But have you put a very fine point on it? I mean, my sister tells a funny story about being on a trip and there was an older woman there, the grandma, and she was like, you guys know not to send pictures of yourselves, your nude butts to people, don't you? And like, my sister was laughing at like, okay, this is a crazy conversation. But has someone said that out loud to your child?
And is it you? Yeah.
You should not take pictures. And the way I express it to my child, which I think has been pretty effective, is please understand that anything you ever send to someone, I want you to picture your school principal and myself and your dad sitting in a room and seeing that and discussing it in front of you.
I think that the unraveling of romantic relationships, which are difficult when you're in your teen years, is when text messaging is the worst idea, right? Like, pick up the phone. If you're talking about whether you're breaking up or not, or did you talk to this one or not, if you're having conflict, talk on the phone. Stop texting each other. And I do think that there is a reticence among literally all of us, but especially our kids, to speak in person over texting. But yes, texting can be screenshotted, can be sent to somebody, get your romantic dealings out of out of texts because it's complicated.
And I think so importantly, stay on the same side of the net with your child against the problem. So if the example is my friend met a guy over the internet or even met a guy in karate class, he wanted to meet up with her and they met up. And right away, he was pressuring them to go to a second location where they could make out. And she thought it was very much oh my gosh, we have a sweet little crush and we're going to sit at the soda shop drinking. Like, we're going to sit at McDonald's having Cokes and staring deeply into each other's eyes. I think you have to put a fine point on it sometimes that if you are sneaking behind my back, you lose a huge source of support in your dating relationship. I will maybe let you go to the soda shop with a boy you're interested in to have a conversation, but let's have a code. If it's not going well, text me this and I will just show up at the soda shop. You need training wheels as a 14-year-old, and I can be that, but not if you are going behind my back. We need to establish this trust with our 5, 6, 7, 8-year-olds and say, I want to be your training wheels. I am not here to come in and scream and pounce and say, you idiot, how did you put yourself in this situation? But you can more safely explore romantic ideas if you are safer. And that's what we're going for. Us figuring out together how to navigate romantic feelings safely. And I think, and I have seen play out, and I'm going to be gendered here, and I know people don't love that, but this is my lived experience, that young girls sometimes think of romance as the kind of Twilight version, the vampire who cannot have sex with you, but is so in love with you. He just wants to stare deeply into your eyes and tell you how awesome you are. They go in with that expectation, and a boy might come into the same expectation with, this girl likes me and we're going to make out, and that's going to be awesome.
Right. And there's these bases I've been told about.
Right. And my job is to move around the bases. Yeah. And there's no, I mean, it's also funny that it's baseball where there's really no defense, it's not football where it's like there's an offensive line trying to stop me from my goal. It's baseball. I just got to hit the right shot and run the bases. Mm-hmm. I have put a pretty fine point on that with both my boys and girls about you have to know what your expectations are. I will say my boys are very familiar with the concept of consent. That is something that's being discussed much more, and I like the way they talk about it. But consent is something that we start talking about with 3-year-olds. You're tickling that kid. They're asking you to stop, and you're not stopping. Stop stops the game.
There's this Instagram account, I'll put a link in the show notes, called Emerging Kings. It is a Black man who is teaching boys, mostly black boys in the video, although there's kids of other races too, how to do all sorts of things, how to use a fire extinguisher, how to check in for a flight. Like here's life lessons. But at least half the lessons are him acting out in front of them. You know, let me give you a hug to a woman and her being like, oh, I don't know. I'm not really. It's like, oh, come on. What's the problem? And then he stops and it's like, what am I doing wrong? What am I doing wrong, guys? And these 10-year-old boys saying like, you didn't listen to what she was saying. And he's teaching consent. I'll share the account because I think you'd like it. I think our listeners would like it. I think these would be great to show to your kids if you're looking for like, how do I start talking about consent without their eyes rolling back in their head? Like share these videos with them and see what they think about them. They're so engaging and it's so important, as you say, to be talking about this before they're at the age where they're dating.
Absolutely. And I think that underscoring these things with boys and girls from a young age, no stops anything that's going on. The minute you hear the word no, it stops everything. Then if one person in the know is like, no, it's fine. I'm like, then don't say no, because no stops the game. This is a lesson that I think is super important. And I wasn't comfortable as a young person. I think one of the reasons I didn't date, and I've told the story on the podcast, is at some point I got invited to my first party ever. And like the hot lacrosse boys were like, we need beer and we need you to drive us. And I didn't have a driver's license. I had a permit. And I was like, okay. And I just drove them to a liquor store with no license, and they bought beer and put it in my parents' car. And then I drove back to the party. At one point I like hit the curb because I wasn't a good driver. And I remember thinking, if my parents caught me doing this, they would be shocked. They know they've taught me not to do this, but all that fell away the minute a cute lacrosse boy looked at me.
And that's human. Right. So that's why you have to be talking about this early and often, because they're not always going to make great choices.
And what does it feel like to say no? And it doesn't feel good. And then what's the second part when you start feeling bad about saying no? And I'm not saying you can prevent your kid from ever being in a bad situation, but start having these conversations very early.
Yeah.
We'll be right back.
It's way more fun to plan a summer vacation when you know exactly how you're going to afford it. That's why Margaret and I both love Monarch Core. Monarch is the personal finance app that tracks everything: accounts, investments, savings goals, and spending. And right now, you can get your first year of Monarch Core for half off, just $50 with the promo code FRESH. Monarch Core takes the mental load of your finances way down. When I log into the Monarch Core app, all the info is there, right at my fingertips. Most apps only tell you what you've already spent. Monarch Core helps you set goals and map out big purchases, like that summer vacation. Or you can even ask Monarch Core's AI assistant about your finances. How much did I spend on that vacation last summer? Or can I spend this much on this year's vacation without touching my savings? Use code FRESH at monarch.com to get your first year of Monarch Core half off at just $50. That's 50% off your first year at monarch.com with the code FRESH.
Amy, when you take Nutrafol every day, and you know that I do, every day can be a good hair day.
So many good hair days around here, Margaret.
Killing it.
Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist recommended hair growth supplement brand, and it's the #1 hair growth supplement brand personally used by dermatologists. Nutrafol supports hair health from within, working over time to deliver results you can see and feel.
Nutrafol's hair growth supplements are peer-reviewed, NSF certified for sport, and clinically tested. Nutrafol offers multiple formulas for men and women tailored to different life stages and lifestyle factors, so you get support that's actually right for you.
Let your hair be one less thing to worry about. See visibly thicker, stronger, faster-growing hair in 3 to 6 months with Nutrafol.
For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering our listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you visit Nutrafol.com and enter promo code LAUGHING.
That's Nutrafol.com, spelled Nutrafol.com, promo code LAUGHING.
And now, the 6 types of moms explaining the birds and the bees from the What Fresh Hell podcast. The playing it cool mom.
Listen, guys, this is no big deal. It's something everyone does. I'm sure you've heard lots of things at school, but we're just going to talk it out, okay? No pressure, no weirdness, just a chat ski with the old momstress. Nice and easy.
The I'm not going to make this awkward mom.
I know this seems really awkward. Oh my God, when my mom talked to me about this stuff, it was so incredibly awkward. I'm not going to make this awkward. Should we sit? Because standing feels awkward. Okay, I think we may be sitting too close. That also feels awkward, and I do not want this to be awkward.
Let's lighten this up, Mom.
The old bird and the bees. You know when a bee mates, don't you? When she finds her honey. Get it? Well, it's time to talk about the birds and the bees. Buzz, buzz, and flap, flap. Am I right? I mean, could this be any weirder? Talking to your mom about this stuff? Cringe. Am I right?
The professorial mom.
Gather round, children. I have a PowerPoint presentation that I will begin once everyone is seated and the giggling has completely ceased. When you are ready, we will begin with the urethral orifice before moving on to the glans majoris.
The having trouble getting started, Mom.
So, I wanted to talk to you about something. What's the word? It's sensitive, but it's not bad sensitive. In fact, it can be a wonderful thing. I mean, really one of the most wonderful experiences there is. But this experience should not be undertaken lightly. I mean, it's special in a very specific way that I want to talk to you about because it's so important and private. It is also private, but not in a bad way. Okay, wait, where was I?
This has been 6 Types of Moms Explaining the Birds and the Bees from the What Fresh Hell podcast. So I'm just going to touch lightly because I feel like we understand this stuff. Online is causing problems that we're not familiar with, right? People are public online. The breakup is then public. There's a lot of people involved when you're in an online, relationship status, dating, change to single. Everyone's got questions. I think back in our day, it was maybe easier to be like, are you guys together? We're just talking. And now we're not talking anymore. And that the aspects of online interaction have made this more complicated. And 69% of teen daters, this is still from Pew Research, agree that too many people can see what's going on in their relationship on social media. It's adding a pressure that we are not as aware of.
Yep.
Lots of negative aspects of technology, and we'll link to this article and you can look at them. Here's an article from Childmind, how to help your kids have good romantic relationships. Here are some rules to start to follow.
All right. Some good parts, some good ideas for good relationships.
Look for someone you feel comfortable with is a rule. What does that look like? Can you be yourself around them, or do you have to change? Can you have different opinions than them, or are you molding your opinions to theirs? Do you trust this person when you're not with them? And are you feeling pressured to do things that you don't want to do? This is obviously sexual, but also going places you don't want to go, drinking when you don't want to drink, wearing things you don't want to wear. And I think breaking these ideas down, and this doesn't always have to be, and I think it's better if it's not directly about your kid, but you're noticing that your friend has a boyfriend and they seem to be controlling her actions. What's wrong with that? Why does that make you feel uncomfortable? What would you do in a situation like that? And just, again, these conversations, your friend Bobby made friends with Timmy, and now they seem like a completely different person. Why is that? Why do people do that? These are conversations that don't have to be about dating. They're about what it is to change yourself to be pleasing to another person, and what are the downsides of that.
I just thought of another one. The way that the texting and the phones can be hard with this. Why didn't you text me back? I texted you. Why didn't you text me back?
Right.
Whether it's 2 a.m, whether it's in the middle of history class, whether they texted you 6 times already. I definitely have had to talk to people who are younger than me, but not as young as you might think, who really had to have it explained to them that you don't have to answer your boyfriend every time he texts you within 10 seconds, even if you're in the middle of your work day. And if that is the expectation, then the problem is the expectation.
Another aspect that you've talked about, and I think is super useful, don't forget your friends. You talked about dating at a young age and that you kind of were single focused on a boyfriend, and that you look back and it's like, wait, I missed out on developing better friendships because I was always thinking about a boy.
That's right.
And I think that's something to put a fine point on for your friends. It's listen, the other reason I don't think dating is a great idea before 16 is you need to build up a base of friendships. And when you focus on one person at a young age, it costs you something.
And heaven knows, the romantic relationships complicate the pre-existing friendships that you have. Like, do you want to start some drama among your friends? One of you should start dating something that somebody else likes or whatever. It's just, it is, it's a powder keg.
It causes a lot of consternation. And like, you can want it or not want it, but you have to know you're making that choice.
That's right.
Be your own person. This comes back a little bit to, you want to share interests with the person you're dating. You don't want to become the person you're dating who they want to date. And I think this is very hard for young people, and it's something to continue talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to see you giving up ballet because your boyfriend wants to spend more time with you.
Yeah.
And I don't want to see you as a youngster, again, giving up ballet, let's say as a boy, because your friends think it's lame to do ballet if you're a boy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can always make choices to make yourself smaller, to make other people like you, but I'm going to help you see what that costs you.
Well said.
Don't hide from problems. Problems in a relationship are very, very normal. It does not mean the relationship is doomed, but problems get bigger, not smaller. And it's much better to admit that something's wrong and talk about it and try to fix it than push it to the side.
You shouldn't just stop answering their texts and that's how they know you don't like them anymore.
I believe, Amy, that's not the way to do it.
Okay. I'll be sure to pass that on.
A second point of this that, again, we can start doing when we're 3, 4, 5. What is good conflict and what is bad conflict?
Mm-hmm.
And this, the more your kids understand this as young kids, the more effective they're going to be in dating. You can explain how you feel to somebody. You can have a difference of opinion. You can argue about who's going to play with that truck right now. But how are we dealing with conflict? Are we giving up the minute someone feels conflict with us? Or are we solving disagreements with other people, whether that person is your brother or your first crush?
Here's a topic none of us really want to think about, but it's important to help our kids recognize ahead of time, as you said, early and often, what are the signs of abusive relationships for themselves or their friends?
So let's go through some of those signs.
Let's go through some of those signs. Say the boyfriend or girlfriend in an abusive relationship might be constantly critical, make you feel bad, try to keep you away from your friends or family. I think that's part of what the texting all the time is about, constantly interrupting your continuity with literally anything else. Then they want to check your messages, who else you're talking to.
I think this piece of monitoring is super important. Monitoring your phone, monitoring your social media, your location. Then we get into threatening something bad will happen if you break up. They will hurt themselves or they will hurt you, force you to do things you don't want to do, make you feel guilty and hurt you. I'm going to say this starts at 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All of us have had kids who are in a friendship that we're like, I don't like the way that person treats you.
Yes.
They don't treat you really well. And here's my concern about how you are being treated in that relationship. These conversations, you don't want to have them for the first time when your child is in an abusive teenage dating relationship. You want to be having all the time. And you can model this stuff too. Unfortunately, I had to step away from a situation where I just felt like, even though I had a lot of love for this person, you can talk to your kids about relationships you were in, how they ended. My husband was divorced. My kids are really interested in that. Like, what happened? It wasn't an abusive relationship, but like, how did you realize that you had married someone you were not compatible with? What did that look like? How did you extricate yourself? Unfortunately, it took me too long to realize I felt these things and I was worried, but I ended up getting married anyway because I felt pressure to do that. The kind of conversations, the other thing that happens a lot is like you watch television with kids. This is a great time to be like, I was in a relationship like that and I had the same problem. I was having trouble getting out of it because I loved this person, but it wasn't good for either one of us to be together. That is such a hard situation. Here's how I handled it.
It's such a good point because you get into these relationships and of course they making you question your own self-worth is part of it, but you think that nobody else has gone through this particular thing before. And once you understand that your mom has or your aunt or uncle has, it hits different.
And I believe strongly it is easiest to talk about these things when you are not like, Amy, I hate Bob, your boyfriend. Or Amy, your boyfriend Bob is bad for you. Amy is going to be like, Bob had a tough childhood and you don't understand. The more you have these conversations before Bob arrives, the better you're going to be able to hypothetically or about a friend or about, yes, I know you girls have been friends since you were 8, but right now it seems like you're treating each other really badly and I don't like that. And how can we fix that? And that is going to lead us into the stickiest part of this. What happens if you don't like the person your child is dating?
Okay.
We're going to get the big things out of the way first. Where is this coming from? Is it coming from prejudice, bias, religious beliefs? Leave it. You have no control over that. Is it coming from homophobia, biphobia, transphobia, political phobia? Is it coming from something that is not your business, whether or not your child likes someone you don't like? Leave it. That's not your business. But is it coming from somewhere that you feel like, wait a minute, it's Bob. He's abusive. We hate him. He's leading my child down a bad path. I don't like it. The number one thing we have to acknowledge for ourselves is what level of control you have in this situation, which unfortunately is very close to 0. And watching your child make mistakes and letting them make those mistakes is a horrible feeling.
Yeah, I mean, there's such a difference between like, I don't like my daughter's boyfriend because he's not Catholic or he is Catholic or whatever, right? And I don't like my daughter's boyfriend because I don't think he treats her well. Like that's a huge difference.
And it might be important to you, as it was very important to my parents, that we marry Catholic people in the Catholic Church. That was their tradition. It had been done for hundreds of years in both of their Irish families. And some people did and some people didn't. This is, if you want to explore this, watch Fiddler on the Roof, right? Like Tevye, the father, is like, we do it this way. And each of his daughters challenges him in different ways. And then one of the daughters, at the end, he's like, I can bend, but I can't break. And the daughter makes a decision that is outside what he can accept. Beautiful story, great musical, great music. And you have to be very clear on these things too, right? That like, if you will not accept your child marrying someone of a different religion, that is your choice. You can make that choice. But your child may choose to marry someone from a different religion, and then you won't have a relationship with them. That is a choice that you can make.
Yes, but I also think like what's very important to keep in mind, particularly in this day and age, as people are marrying later and later, and the kid that you don't like when they're 16. I'm not talking about a kid you don't like because they're mean to your kid, a kid that you don't like because they come from the wrong side of town. Or like I said, he's Catholic and I don't like Catholic people. I'm saying that because I am Catholic. So I can feel like I can throw that slur around. Your kid is not going to marry this kid. It's fine. You know,
Right.
if you start like laying down the hammer on every sort of like, I didn't like that he wore a backwards baseball cap to dinner, you know, then it's going to be a long road and you just let them figure out that the kid was kind of boring, didn't have that much to say on their own. That's fine too.
I'm going to give you 3 tips about things to think about when your child is dating someone you don't like. Number 1, have this conversation at a calm moment. Try to have this conversation about other kids before it comes home to you. Right? Like, oh gosh, her parents don't like her. What is that like? How does she feel about it? What do you think? Does the parent have legitimate points or not? Like, again, conversation is king. Number 2, you will not get anywhere with passive aggressive comments about this person. Oh, backwards baseball cap. What a rude, not in my day, right? Not helpful. You can have a conversation about like, hey, I found it rude that your boyfriend came to the table and didn't take his hat off the whole time. You can have that conversation at a calm time. Pick the hills you want to die on, you know, and your kid may react lots of different ways. And you can also set the rules for your own house. Hey, Bobby, we don't wear baseball caps at the table. Just take it off before you come to our table. That's how we operate. I'm big on like my house, my rules, your house, your rules. And then I think the biggest thing is, Amy, your rope. Are you in a tug of war with your child? Almost always the best thing to do is drop your end of the rope because they're getting a lot out of how much you hate Bobby. Drop the rope and see what happens. If I thought you could tug hard enough to get them to break up with Bobby, I'd be like, keep pulling. I don't believe you can. Therefore, I think the answer in most cases is to drop the rope. And you may have to do some Al-Anon-based work around like what I can and can't control and the wisdom to know the difference. And this is a place where, again, moms of 3-year-olds, Let's start laying groundwork so that we have a lot of room to have these conversations at 14, 15, 16, and 30, because just parachuting in to be like, this guy is trash and I know it and you don't, it's not going well. I'm sorry.
We teach our daughters and our sons from a young age to value themselves and to hold their value enough that they hold and esteem who they want to spend time with in friendships and in romantic relationships. That work's going to go a lot farther.
And I'm going to close very quickly because, man, there's a lot to talk about here.
Yeah, there is.
I hate to tell you, it's our old friend modeling. The New York Times did a decades-long study that suggests that close relationships with family members during teenage years leads to a rich network of friendships and positive relationships in adulthood. Your kids are going to marry somebody like you or your spouse, and they're going to have a relationship that reflects the relationship they've grown up with at home. And so how you treat your spouse in front of your children, whether they're 3 or 30, is going to inform a lot in who they seek out as a partner.
That's true.
Got to model it. We hate to say it. It all comes down to modeling.
That's true. Well, yeah, they're not dating these days. They're just talking.
They're hanging out, Amy. They're hanging.
Actually, come tell us on Spotify. You can comment right on episodes on Spotify. So I want to know, what are your kids calling it dating? Because they're not calling it dating. We definitely are Goldilocks for using that term. So in my house, it's talking and hanging out. I'm curious if there's more euphemisms.
Yeah. And we may end up with a dating part 2, because there was a whole thing we didn't even get to. Dating trends with all of these terms like chalance, which is the opposite of nonchalance, and ghostlighting. We may have to do a whole other episode. We're like, what's going on with the lingo out there, guys?
We will definitely do that in an upcoming episode. That sounds like a blast.
Until then, hit us up on Spotify with those questions, and we will talk to you next time.
Thanks, everybody.